Hi, this is David Morales from the Three Sonorians website, and I asked recently if people would be interested if I made a video podcast, and I got a lot of positive response. And well, instead of you watching me speak to discuss these issues, I've made a PowerPoint, and I'm just gonna kind of narrate the PowerPoint for you, so that hopefully you can understand what we've been talking about lately with Prop 301 and TUSD. There's nearly $20 million that TUSD is just not spending on teachers. And the question is why? And where do we get this number from? I've had a lot of other people in the media question me about this. So I'm going to show you everything where all the numbers come from. So, what is Prop 301? In November of 2000, voters approved Prop 301, and it created a 0.6% sales tax that was meant for education. And we'll go over a little bit about how that money is broken up. The ADE distributes the money to districts based on enrollment. So in 2002, when this first started, it was about $272 per pupil. So obviously, the bigger the districts, the more money they're going to get. Not all the money just goes to K through 12. This data is for fiscal year 2016, which just ended, so it's very current data. So Prop 301, that 0.6% sales tax, generated over $640 million. Now, as you can see, about 70 million went to the universities. Some goes to the community colleges and so on, as you can see. The final number is the one we're going to be interested in today, and that's the classroom site funds, which is $364 million, which makes up 57% of the overall Prop 301 monies. So when we refer to Prop 301 in the rest of this presentation, what we're really talking about is the classroom site funds part of Prop 301, the part that goes to the districts. Now, of that money that goes to the districts, about half goes to the state's 13 largest districts. As you can see here, we have 4 plus 9 is 13, and altogether they're getting about 48.4%. It's about half, right? Mesa is the largest, and it gets about $22 million each year in Prop 301 monies. TUSD is the second largest, and it gets about $18 million. Sometimes, this is based on sales taxes. Sometimes it's around $16 million. Sometimes it's $18 million. It all depends on the year. But it generally fluctuates around there, not too much. So of the money, the classroom site funds, the Prop 301 as we're going to call it, this is how you're allowed to spend it. 20% is for the teacher base pay increases. Okay, this is saying, okay, you know what? Teachers are going to get paid more money based on this. 40% is for teacher performance pay. This is, teachers can get an extra $3,000 if they, meet certain requirements, do good and beyond the call of duty, whatever the principal or the district has set up for them. This is an extra 40% that they can get. And then the last 40% can also go to teachers. You can see what you can spend it on, maintenance and operations. Aims we don't have anymore, but that was a state standardized test. We have dropout prevention, or you could also just pay the teacher more with compensation or insurance, whatever. Now, how do we know where TUSD is spending its money? Well, every year the district has to file a report with the state, by state law. And there's a link that you can see here. There's a big old blue arrow, and there's a link, and you can find all of this on that site. And you can see on the bottom, it has the fiscal year 2015, 14, and 13. We're going to look at fiscal year 13. Now, we're going to start with 2013 because this is, as you can see, the signature right there. This is HT Sanchez's first year as superintendent. So he signed off on this. And you can also see that this is Yusuf Awad, the previous CFO, is still around. So this is what we're starting with. Now this slide looks a bit overwhelming, but what we're going to do here is we're going to pull out the numbers that, only the numbers that we need to do this. So first of all, this is broken up into three main categories. You remember this slide, this little picture that we saw before. This section, the top third, is the base salary, and if you have supervision, you can see there's this base salary above it. Like I said, you can download these from the link I gave you earlier. This part is the performance pay, and this part is the other. Now notice that everything lines up with the state law. So this is the base pay, this is the performance, and this is the other. Now, also keep in mind that each section has its own bottom line. So we have line 16, line 32, and line 48. These are the bottom lines for these subcategories. And then 49 is the ultimate bottom line. I don't know if you can read it, but at the very bottom of the first column, it says beginning fund balance. And you can see at the very bottom, line 49, it says $1.6 million. This is the amount that's carried over from the previous year that you didn't spend. So this is during the Petticone administration. This is $1.6 million that it had left over. Ideally, you want this number to be as close to zero as possible, because that means you're spending the money on the teachers like you're supposed to. And so I'm going to pull these numbers on the next slide so you can see how they all line up. So the beginning fund balance is $1.6 million, which we just saw. And this is what was left over from the Petticone administration from the 2012 fiscal year. Then TUSD gets $16.3 million in Prop 301 money that year. So at this point, TUSD has about $18 million to spend. Now these numbers are rounded off. There's, when you save money in an account, you can accrue interest, and, it's not a lot of money, but it's, just so if you're wondering why these numbers don't add up completely exactly. But you can look them up to see the exact numbers. So TUSD gets $16.3 million that year, so it now has about $18 million to spend from what it saved before, from what it got. Yet it ends up with an ending balance of $6.3 million that it didn't spend. Now we can go back just to see this. This is the bottom number on the last column, line 49, ending fund balance. That's where it says 6.26, so $6.3 million. And now let me have to go through this again. So that's where all these numbers come from. So from 1.6 million, we end up with 6.3 million. Now, how is that possible? Well, the amount in the first category, the base pay amount, that was cut by 33.8%. That means 33.8% less money was going to the teacher base pay than before. This is what's amazing. The performance pay, the amount spent was cut by over half. 54.6% was cut. And then in the overall, it spends 31.8 less in Prop 301 money than the previous year. So notice here that the amount that the amount that's left in the performance pay is $6.3 million, and the amount in Prop 301 money that's left over is $6.3 million. So most of this money that's in the Prop 301 money that's not being spent is coming from the performance pay section. Now, 2014, we get a new CFO, and this is important because the previous CFO, Awad, kind of warned a doomsday that TUSD was about to collapse and be $15 to $20 million in the hole. So TUSD brings a CFO from Nogales who had her own little scandal for not paying taxes or something. The IRS was involved, I think. So now she's a person in charge. And as we saw, we start with $6.3 million. And like I said, all these numbers are available. You can see them yourself on these the AFR links that I sent you earlier. So of the $3.7 million that TUSD, now remember this amount is coming from, you have the previous amount and then you have the new amount that you're getting. So the amount that you can spend, that's why these numbers are growing every year. Of the $3.7 million that TUSD can spend on teachers' base salary, it only spends $2.8 million. That means there's almost $1 million that could have went and should have went to teacher salaries that didn't. Of the $13.6 million that TUSD could have spent on performance pay, it only spends $3.9 million. That's almost $10 million that TUSD should have used on teachers and it didn't use on teachers. The last category, TUSD spends some money, but there's $1 million left over. So in the end, the ending balance is $11.7 million that TUSD is not spending. Now in 2015, for sure, HT Sanchez and Carla Soto can't blame Petticone anymore. This is clearly their time. They're doing what they're signing off on. The beginning balance is $11.7 million. Of the $4.3 million that TUSD can spend on teachers' base salaries, it only spends $2.7 million. That's over $1 million that TUSD is not spending. Of the $16.6 million that TUSD can spend on performance pay, it only spends $3.9 million. This is outrageous. This is, $12, $13 million that is not spending on teachers. It also saves $1.1 million from the other category. So the ending balance is $15.4 million. And you can see this number for yourself on the bottom right corner of the third page of the 2015 annual financial report. Why is TUSD hoarding $15.4 million, especially at a time when teachers they need more money, right? So Teachers are already struggling and starving, so why is TUSD denying them this money? And this money can only be spent on teachers anyways, so why stockpile it if you can't spend it on anything else? So why is Hoarding HT doing this? Well, he was questioned about this at a board meeting by Mark Stegeman, and he blamed Petticone. And he says it's all Petticone's fault. Petticone left us all this money, so it's his fault. But as you saw in for yourself, the amount that Petticone left was $1.6 million in reserves. Under HT Sanchez and Carla Soto, this amount has grown nearly tenfold to almost $16 million. But it gets worse. So now, by 2000, so a month ago or 2 months ago now, this news was already out there. It's been written about in blogs. It's been talked about on the radio. It's been mentioned at board meetings. It's out there. You would think, okay, fool me once, or I'm sorry about it once, and now we'll get this fixed so that you know the issue can be resolved. So this was important because just a few weeks ago at the July meeting, which is when the budget was presented, the TUSD board finally gets to vote on its budget for the current year. Are they finally going to give that $15.4 million that's extra? Because TUSD is already going to get an extra, 16, to $17 million. So that's so much money it has to spend. Are they going to spend it on the teachers, or is HT's hoarding disease going to spread? So we look at Carla Soto's presentation, and you can see the link at the bottom. This is what she presented to the board. This coming up year, this is from page 44, this coming up year, TUSD will get $18.5 million in Prop 301 money. Now, keep in mind, we already have $15.4 million, so altogether, this is like $33 million that TUSD can spend. TUSD is only going to spend $14.2 million. That is an extra $4.3 million that HT Sanchez, that TUSD is not spending on the teachers. This number, $4.3 million, shows up again in Carla Soto's slide. This is on page 15. She says, and so that this number, $33 million, makes sense because you get the $18 million from this year plus the $15 million that you didn't spend from previous years, so you have $33 million. But she's saying they're going to have even more money the following year. $4.3 million, that's the same number we just saw right now. $4.3 million. What is TUSD doing with, why are they hoarding this money? Like, you should be spending it as soon as it comes in, giving it to the teachers. Now, the teachers got a little bit of money, but, well, we'll talk about that in a little bit. The beginning balance for this year was $15.4 million. The amount that is unspent will be $4.3 million. That means that there is now $19.7 million in unspent Prop 301 monies. Nearly $20 million unspent. The teachers are starving. They could get paid more, but they're not. Why is this? Well, it's a con, in my opinion. You have to create a false emergency to get away with stuff. So now let's consider the following, all right? TUSD now has more in Prop 301 reserves It has more in money that it didn't spend, $19.7 million, than it even gets in an entire year from Prop 301 monies. It's going to get 18.5 million next year. It's going to have 19.7 million it didn't spend. So that means that's a whole year's worth that TUSD didn't spend. Now imagine if the Republicans running the Department of Education or the legislature cut TUSD's 301 money for 1 year. What if they said, you know what, for 1 year, you get none of this money? There would be an uproar. You'd have Senator Steve Farley at the meetings. You'd have the great testifier HT Sanchez. You'd have the Democrats rallying the troops. You'd have all of this because they cut our 301 money for 1 year. But it turns out that that's the same equivalent thing that HT Sanchez did. That's a year's worth of money that he did not spend. So that's equivalent to if the state said you're not going to get that money for a year. Either way, it wasn't spent on the teachers, right? So where's the uproar? Who cares? And this money is not being spent on teachers, but man, when it comes to his salary, which is more than the president makes, $500,000, he gets it, right? The board makes sure he gets paid. So why aren't the teachers, more mad about this? Where's the teachers union at? Why is this even going on? There's a few reasons why this could be happening. And either way, it's just wrong not to spend this money. All right. So I'll provide some options, what I think, but either way, they should be spending this money. So why is our democratically run board approving these ludicrous budgets where Prop 301 money is not being spent? Well, one reason is that when the previous CFO left, he said TUSD was going broke. Yet Crystal Foster, who's running for re-election this year, sent out some campaign material saying that TUSD is not going broke, and in fact, it has $17 million in reserves. Well, almost all that money is Prop 301 money that's not being spent. She forgot to mention that. She forgot to say, well, we ended up not paying our teachers, but we should have paid them just so that I can look like we have lots of money so I can win re-election. That is horrible. Not spending Prop 301 money makes it look like TUSD has more money than it really has. And if you think about it, if we only had 17 million in reserves and 15.4 million of that was from Prop 301 money, that means TUSD doesn't have much money in reserves, right? Maybe $1 million or $2 million, if that. That's not good. A second reason, well, this is where the politics enters in. The whole argument for Prop 123, which just passed a month ago or 2 months ago, is that the state was holding back Prop 301 money and that TUSD it needed this money or else nothing would happen, the teachers would starve and everyone would leave and there's just no alternative. It acted as if it spent every last penny and was starving for anything. Like, we gave our teachers everything we could and there's nothing left. We need more money. Yet TUSD has almost $20 million that it hasn't spent. And on top of that $20 million, it sold us on a lie. Because the TUSD board supported Prop 123. And we all fell for it, thinking that if we did not vote for it, TUSD was going to fall off a cliff, disaster was coming. It wasn't true. We had $20 million in reserves. And in fact, now we have more money from 123. So the money keeps on growing. And guess what? TUSD only spent 26% of Prop 123 money on teachers. Meanwhile, Sunnyside, our neighbor to the south, spent all 100% of its money on raises. So TUSD has not been paying the teachers what they deserve with 301. And then with the 123 money, it just gave them 26% and spent the rest on other stuff. And then Crystal Foster put out a mailer saying, well, we needed to save some of that money for later. They only saved 8% of that money for the next year. And they spent the rest. Now this graph will show you how crazy things are in TUSD. This is a graph of the amount of money that districts have left over from previous the 301 money and what percentage it is of the total amount of Prop 301 money they get. Now, you want this number to be as close to zero as possible. It means money's coming in and you're spending it on your teachers and everyone's happy. Look at TUSD. Every single year it's grown since HT Sanchez took over, and it's now 107% of unspent Prop 301 money as compared to the amount they even get per year. That's ridiculous. That means that's a whole year's worth that they have not spent on teachers. Look at Marana. I mean, Marana gets the money and spends it. Some districts, like Tenca Verde, they're a little bit under right now, but it's okay because they get money next year and things balance out. But at least they're spending as much money as they can. Look at Vail. You know, the 2016 number, they're spending what comes in, goes out. TUSD is hoarding. I don't know why. It's a sickness. But, there's a show devoted to this and hoarders, and it's just not spending that money, and teachers are fleeing the district. Over 1,100 teachers have left in the last 3 years. And those numbers are from every board meeting, every board agenda has the teachers that are leaving. And there's over 1,100 in the past 36 months. Maybe this is why. So, since HT Sanchez is a very religious person, I found a good quote for him. God's people are not to accumulate stuff for tomorrow, but to share indiscriminately with the scandalous and holy confidence that God will provide for tomorrow. Then we need not stockpile stuff in barns or 401k, especially when there is someone in need. TUSD is going to get money for 301 and 123 next year. The money will be there. Why are we stockpiling it? It's sick. It's a sickness that we're not spending $20 million. And you saw the graphs compared to every other district. We're the only one that's doing this. We have the money for teachers. Why don't we spend it on the teachers? It's a sickness. And you know what? They gave teachers a little bit of raise, $2,000 this past year? Teachers should have had more than that for the years already. And they give you just a little bit, and the TEA is happy. There should be outrage at every board meeting that the money that voters decided should go to teachers and that we're paying for with the 0.6% sales tax is not going to the teachers. All because HT Sanchez has a hoarding disease that he refuses to spend money unless it's on himself. The board refuses to spend money on the teachers unless it's on them going to Boston and staying at the nicest hotels. This is sick. What are you going to do about it? Thank you for listening.